So, since you were in McKinsey for 11 years.
Interview the top 10% of the class. So fortunately, I was in the top 10% both at Harvard and Sloan.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Partha S. Ghosh, a distinguished alumnus of IIT Kharagpur. Mr. Ghosh is a renowned global policy advisor and strategist with a remarkable career spanning over 40 years. He has been a partner at McKinsey and Company for 12 years and is the founder of Partha S. Ghosh and Associates. His innovative approaches to business and economic models have made a significant impact worldwide. Mr. Ghosh has also been an influential educator at prestigious institutions like MIT and Tufts. His extensive contributions to various industries and his dedication to public service have earned him numerous accolades, including the Distinguished IIT Alumni Medal. Akshita?
Yes. So, sir, shall we start with our questions?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So, as we all know that every IIT has their own unique journey, own unique trajectory. So, what was your JEE journey like? How was exactly JEE at your time, and what was your experience?
And by JU, I suspect you mean joint entrance examination.
Exactly.
Now, maybe my answer will disappoint you. During the times when we were uh, moving from school to college, uh, I didn't know about IIT even 6 months before I was graduating. There was understanding IIT Kharagpur, particularly IIT Kharagpur was the place to go. But people used to talk about Bengal Engineering College in Shibpur, Jadavpur University, University of Roorkee, Presidency College that time was the place to be in Calcutta. All the stars of India used to come out from Presidency College. So, there was not really any special place for the joint entrance examination. I came to know about the joint entrance examination about 2, 3 months before the exam.
All right.
And one of my relatives went to Dalhousie Square in Calcutta, got the green color application form. I filled it up. I enjoyed filling it up. Then I got a what they call admission for ticket for going to a college where I have to take the exam. I didn't really prepare for it. I mean, I just really didn't prepare for it. I just took the exam. The preparation that I made for my higher secondary exam in Calcutta, I felt was good enough. And indeed, it was very good. I enjoyed each and every moment of the exam, particularly the physics, the chemistry, the math. I really enjoyed it, by the way. I mean, that was one exam. I really enjoyed it. I felt very good taking the exam. But to be honest with you, there was not really any kind of preparation, not only for me. I would say most of my friends who joined IIT in the mid 60s, this was 1966 when I joined IIT, I was 15 years old. We just used to take the exam. So there was not any kind of special experience preparing for joint entrance examination. But if you ask me, did I enjoy the experience of taking the test? Absolutely, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, it's pretty contrary to today, sir. Today, if you see people and the rush in joint entrance examination, it's really like it's too much, sir. It's like very overwhelming. It's become a very overwhelming examination, sir. So like hearing from you that it was quite something that you enjoyed. It's kind of it hits like contrary to us because nowadays the scenario is completely different with joint entrance examinations, sir.
I think that has to change because for 2, 3 reasons. Firstly, I understand what you're saying. I
Yes.
think about 20 years ago, I was invited to give a talk at the Netaji Auditorium in front of all the students. It was house full. But when I began speaking, I started talking about what are the global trends, how IITians could play a major role in the globe based on my experience, except I was 20 years younger. But still I had 20 years of experience, which was good enough for me to share
Yes.
about what I learned. Now, what I noticed in the middle of the conversation, I stopped my talk because everyone looked very sleepy. And I stopped. I said, "Are you guys enjoying what I'm talking?" There was absolute silence. Then the one young lady, I still remember her, she stood up. Yes, we're enjoying, but yeah, Mr. Ghosh, you made a very good observation. We are tired. And I said, why? He said that, look, by the time we join IIT, we put in so much of effort. We feel having come to Kharagpur, we already achieved what we are supposed to achieve, and we are now counting our time for the next 4 years. I was shocked. I was literally shocked, but she was very honest. And she also said that, look, my father didn't go to IIT, but some of my other relatives went to IIT Kharagpur, and they were very different kind of personalities. So I was reminded that our time when I joined IIT and the way you guys have joined IIT, things have changed dramatically. And where I would suggest you guys could start a movement, which is very important, is that the test was very difficult. There's no doubt that the test was, but I enjoyed it. That should not be lowered. The bar should not be lowered, but there should not be so much pressure from parents and society that it is either IIT or nothing. There are a lot of great places. I think that's something we have to really work on. Number two, I personally feel that setting up all these tutorials is not healthy because people are spending more time in tutorials than their real school.
Right.
I think you have to learn how to enjoy the school. Tutorials are expensive, which means only the rich people can afford to go to schools, tutorials, and as a result, they get into IIT. IITs were designed for everyone. In fact, the topper in my group, the first who came first in the joint entrance examination, would you believe he came from a very small town in Midnapur, actually, near Kharagpur, but he was the number one in JEE. I still remember him. He joined aerospace, aeronautics department. So that was the IIT I really appreciated. And I could see when I was at IIT, there were this guy, what was his name? I'm trying to remember, Mandal. And then there was some people who came from very rich family, Doon school background, or St. Xavier's school background, La Martiniere in Calcutta. And there was a full mix of people, but purely on the basis of merit. There was no tutorials that time. So that's why we don't have any special thing to share with you in terms of joint what you asked the question was my experience, the journey of JE. There was no journey. There was one spot taking the test.
Yes,
That's really
because
nice to hear.
nowadays it's like 2 to 6 years of journey for people before giving this entrance exam.
That is, I know I'm really worried about it because I believe that for India to rise, which is some of your later questions, I know the first thing that we have to ensure we maintain is the natural passion, not kind of go to get into a pressure cooker at the age of 10 or 12 so that you can go to IIT. Then your mind does not develop. I mean, we recite the point of Tagore all the time when the head is held high and your mind is fearless. We talk about it all the time, but we are not following a single word of it. We just do going the opposite direction.
Yes, sir. That was really insightful, sir. And sir, like when we first come to an IIT, it's a totally different experience with people from diverse backgrounds meeting together. And I think especially KGP, given its diverse culture and the kind of uh, since it's like it's so big, we can see that there are people from every set of backgrounds available, right? So sir, we can see that, like even us today, we feel that the hall plays a very critical role in the development of a person in, especially in IIT Kharagpur, sir. Sir, if you could please share which hall you are from and some of the experiences that helped shape you better, sir.
That's a very good question.
Yes.
First, I was in the Rajendra RP Hall. RP
Okay.
Hall, the closest hall. That time, RP Hall was the name of the game because for the 5 years I was there, we used to have 5 year integrated program. Every year we won the IIT championship. RP
Oh,
Hall is to come out number one. Thanks to a good friend of mine, his name was Richard D'Souza. He was a superb runner, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters. Each one of them will come number one. I used to also run with him. So we had a fantastic sports team in RP Hall. We had some of the toppers. The previously the president's gold medalists were from our hall. So I was very proud to be part of the RP Hall. That's point number one. I felt that that's the place to be. Though there was a general feeling, the place to be was in the old campus, which we used to call the Azad Hall, the Nehru Hall, and the Patel Hall. So some of the dadas were from that part of the campus, and some of the hardworking people who are scoring that time was in RPA or RK Hall next to each other. Okay. Now, I had so many sweet experiences, bitter experiences being at the hall. I mean, that's where we come together, really. You have breakfast, you have the lunch, you have the dinner, and you play between the halls. We have space where we used to play soccer or we used to go to the Ghosh Stadium. Uh, but what stands out to me, I went at a very young age. I was at just about completing 15, entering 16. So it was a very early stages of my life. I was just my beard was coming up. By the time I graduated, I could have beard like you. So that was a period, interesting transition period. But there are a couple of people who took tremendous interest in me. One name comes to my mind was called Arup Datta. He was a student of architecture, 3, 4 years senior to me. For some reason, he took a tremendous amount of liking in me so that I could avoid ragging. He would pick me up, hmm, so others would not touch me, other seniors. And then he'll have a wonderful time chatting with me. He used to take me to his hall, and I still remember at the top of the D block, third floor in RP Hall. And I learned a lot from him. I wonder where he is. I'm out of touch, but he taught me about what is this experience all about. And he sounded more like a father than someone who's only 2 or 3 years senior to me. And his advice was to enjoy each and every moment, which I did. I played a lot. I worked hard. I was fortunately topper in my class also. So everything came together for me. And I think I'll give all the credit to this man, Arup Datta, who was a brilliant, very fine gentleman. He was more a gentleman than a student, though he was only 2, 3 years senior to me. But somehow he had that personality, which inspired me a lot. And there's so many others. There's another person who maybe he was my wingmate, 1 year senior to me, Arjun Malhotra. He and I used to. You should interview him, by the way. He and I were kind of same wing. He was my next room. He used to get up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning, wake me up to study. So there was a tremendous focus on being serious and studious. At the same time, Arjun he was tall. He was a basketball player for our hall. He was, I think, the goalkeeper for our soccer team. So there was a lot of play hard, work hard spirit, and there was a tremendous amount of energy, which I felt when I go to IIT these days. I don't feel that the energy level in the campus. The sporting grounds. I go to the sporting grounds. I go and jog when I go to IIT. Even 1 year back, I was in IIT, but I was surprised that no one else was jogging. But when I was young, when I was in IIT Kharagpur, I used to go out jogging around 6 o'clock in the morning. The classes would start at 7:30 during those days. And there were a lot of people jogging, either in the Ghosh Stadium or in the field, which is in the main field where you have several soccer fields, plus you have a cricket place. So I think that we have to bring back. You guys have to work on that. How to make the place a fun place, physically, intellectually, spiritually. That would be my kind of humble suggestion based on what I enjoyed between 1966 and 1971.
I believe nowadays, like people somehow just manage to attend their ATM classes, so that is the reason why we don't see many people jogging in. So, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yes.
No,
So yeah, that's
absolutely.
the thing nowadays.
Also,
And
Uh,
so
like,
you,
yeah, Akshita.
uh, so you shared about your hall experience and a bit about campus. So with hall and IIT KGP comes many memories. So we would like to know about what was your best memory of your campus time.
Sorry, I missed the question. What was your?
So I
Can
was
you repeat the
saying that
question?
yes, sure. So I was saying that with hall and campus comes memories. So what was your best memory of IIT KGP?
But there's so many of them, so many of them that comes to my mind. Let's see. This is a funny story. There was some magic event, some famous magician from Calcutta was visiting Kharagpur, and the event would be in the Netaji Auditorium. All the tickets were sold out, but me and my friend were very disappointed we couldn't buy the ticket. So what we did, we took a ticket from a friend of ours and cut out a piece of paper and drew the picture of the ticket. So it really looks like the ticket. And so we literally drew the ticket. If you think of a ticket, it has got the picture of the magician and all kinds of text, etc., etc. So we created that. And you would be surprised we were able to get into that because people, there was a huge line. People were looking at the tickets. We got in, but obviously we had to sit on the stairs because all the seats were taken. But somehow we could enjoy that experience. That will always stand out in my mind, and I give, though it's something not very ethical, but what I particularly celebrated the creativity with which my friend and I dealt with that particular problem. But I would definitely recommend that we don't participate in such kind of activities. That is one experience which stands out that we were able to draw the picture. The second one, which stands out, which is fun, more related to my studies, I was generally a very competitive person all through my 5 years. I think I was topper in my class all the way through. So much so that even when I was taking an exam, if I couldn't finish it, somehow I will write down an answer based purely on the intuition. And once I did that, and I was surprised that I got 100 out of 100. It was in my second year mathematics class. Uh, and it was a very tough test. And so by the time I could see there's only 5 minutes left, I still have to answer two questions. And somehow I read the question, wrote down the equation that might apply. And instead of going through the whole logic, I wrote down what would be the likely answer for two questions. And they were right. And I was surprised that I got 100 out of 100 when the rest of the class scored kind of 60 out of 100, 50 out of 100. But so that was something which would stand out. It gave me a tremendous sense of confidence in my intuitive capability. And I think intuition plays a very important role because you never have all the facts. You may not have all the time to do the analytics. We are living in a world of data analytics. I'm sure you guys are taking courses on data analytics. But, we'll talk later. In consulting is all about analysis. But there's always a possibility that you may not have all the facts, or we may not have all the time to do all the analytics. But how do you jump into a likely solution is an art which I felt I could sense that I had when I got that 100 out of 100 in my second year class. Mind you, I was only 16 years old or 17 years old. Then the other experience that comes to my mind was that is post just about when I finished it, chemical. I was in the chemical engineering department, and we used to have a uh, across the country competition for the for the bachelor's thesis. So the thesis from other IITs, BHU, Jadavpur University was very well known for chemical engineering. Then there's an institute in Bombay for chemical technology, they call Bombay University of Chemical Technology. They all applied. And IIT Kharagpur had a fantastic record every year. They used to come first in that competition, India-wide competition. But for 2 years before, back to back, we did not receive the prize. Someone from Jadavpur University got it, and someone from Bengal Engineering College got it. So the year I took it, I had that goal that I have to make sure IIT Kharagpur gets this award. And when I come to know that I came first in the All India exam, not exam day, All India competition for your thesis, I was very glad. So that stands out in my mind. I'm talking something all happened 35, 40 years ago. So, yeah, those are the moments. Then there's so many other moments, meeting, there's a very special professor who was very well known. His name was M.N. Rao. He was very well known. He was from chemical engineering department, but he was kind of a godfather. He would not be easily to be seen. But when I first met him, still not working in the department, because the first 2 years we used to do general engineering, physics, chemistry, mathematics. In fact, we used to chemical engineering and electronics used to have the same group, same classes. But when I met him for the first time when I was in second year, it was a great experience. I remember he's a great personality. So that's another thing, the personalities of the professors that time. I don't know, maybe I have changed. Were fantastic. When we used to meet them, we used to feel we have met God. So there's so many of them. I can think of you have really triggered my memory lanes, and the more I search, more interesting stories emerge.
Yes, they were actually very interesting, and especially that one in which you got 100 on 100. That was kind of astonishing, especially in maths by intuition.
Yeah, I was shocked when I came to know there were two mathematics tests, and both of them I scored. One I knew I did well. It was 100 out of 100. It was calculus, I think. The other one was applied mathematics. It's a difficult
Yes, sir.
test. Applied mathematics, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It
It's a
was
difficult one.
very sophisticated problems were given, and then I was running out of time. I said, no, I have to get something done. I wrote down the formulas, and then as a result, the answer is I wrote down something.
But I suppose, sir, you may as well accredit like your intuition to a lot of practice as well, right, sir? I mean, having a lot of practice gives rise to a lot of intuition-based decisions as well, right, sir? I think that's one of the messages that you're trying to propagate.
Absolutely. See, practice which should be archived in your mind. Because I think I often do a course on part of the Leadership Academy, which you will discuss later, is how to develop your intuitive capacity. Great leaders have got that intuitive power. But what is intuition then? To me, intuition is something which resides deep inside your mind, which you could leverage while solving a problem. And that is, of course, based on not only your experience in this life, sometimes, as you become older, you become more philosophical. I feel the experience of your previous lives, which are deeply inside you. If you believe in Indian spiritualism, which says that, you are reborn and reborn and reborn, So the experience of your previous lives that which stays with you develops your intuitive capacity. But to leverage that, you have to develop your inner self, which I personally think is very, very important, particularly as you want to become a leader in some particular field.
All right, sir.
Yes.
That was really insightful. So thank you so much. And sir, you went to MIT for an MS and an MBA. So, sir, would you like to please share your MIT experience with the audience, sir?
Well, MIT is MIT. I mean, I was firstly very glad that I went to MIT. That time, getting into MIT was extremely difficult. I think it's a bit easier now than our time because the way American universities have changed, they are also trying to develop their revenue base based on expanding the size of their classes. But in our time, that was not the focus. Focus was we want to pick the best of the best for the best for the world. It was extremely difficult to get into MIT. But fortunately, because of my records in IIT, and in between, I worked in a company where I was a management trainee in Union Carbide. That experience, Union Carbide was an American company. So I had recommendations both from the workplace as well as from IIT Kharagpur. And I did quite well in my what we used to call GRE. Is GRE still there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I scored almost 798 out of 800.
Oh my God.
So that was so I was very good in taking tests, I think. You know, I never prepare, but just take it and enjoy it. And the key is to enjoy the test and don't feel that
Yes,
your life is dependent on the test. Test is just a way to, sometimes you play a crossword puzzle or play Sudoku, you just enjoy it, right? So you have to take it in that spirit and then you will be surprised that you will do very well. So anyway, so I had all the backing. So when I get into MIT, obviously I was quite um, not scared, but quite curious. What are the other students? So I could see the level of brightness. Now I want to share what was the difference between my IIT experience and MIT. IIT, I felt the students that I dealt with were equally bright, if not more. But at MIT, they were bright, but significantly more curious, significantly more ready to ask stupid questions, significantly more open to, significantly more courageous in the process. That I don't mind looking stupid. Just ask the question. I do not, sir, I do not agree with the second law of thermodynamics. I have a different way of looking at thermodynamics. A student did say in my class, I said, well, I looked at him, I said, wow. Then the professor is also very good. Oh, that's interesting. Why don't you come to the board and explain? And he started writing his equation on the board. I said, wow, this is the kind of experience I hope I had in IIT. But that courage and desire to express, desire to challenge Newton's laws, desire to challenge thermodynamics, desire to challenge kinetic equations, I personally enjoyed. I felt that was I was missing. But I was a bit courageous in IIT, but often professors used to say, why don't you first study and then come back with those questions? First try to understand what we are teaching you. But in MIT, that was not the style of teaching. In fact, professor encouraged us to think out of the box. And there were a lot of students around me who were thinking out of the box. And they came from Princeton, they came from MIT, they came from Harvard, they came from Stanford, all the best. And then there was few. I was the only Indian student in my class, I think. There were some students from Hong Kong. There was no China that there is because China was totally closed. Few very bright students from Japan, Germany. It was a very intense, competitive, free-flowing atmosphere. That's what comes to my mind, particularly in the engineering school. And guess what? You will be very happy to know when I started becoming a bit more visible, people used to tell me, Partha, you should know that one of the brightest person at MIT has been someone from your institute, IIT. And I asked, who is that? His name was Prithinder Singh Vark. Mark the word. Go to the chemical engineering department. You will see the toppers' names. and also that PCRA award, which is organized for the All India competition. You will see his name, Pritinder Singh Bark. He was the first person at MIT. Hear me out very carefully. First person at MIT who scored 100 out of 100 in the qualifying exam for PhD. You have to take qualifying exam. After studying masters, you have to do some advanced courses, and then there's a test. Are you qualified to do PhD? And he's maxed 100 out of 100 in 5 or 6 exams you have to take on different subjects. It could be thermodynamics, it could be kinetics, it could be mass transfer. I don't know, you guys are familiar with chemical engineering terms. Those are the exams he took, and he came number one. He's obviously very senior too. I think he graduated in 1963 or 62. He now is a professor emeritus at MIT. Amazing. So that was something I thought I'd let you know. That is the one experience which gave me tremendous boost. At the same time, there was an announcement made by MIT who were the top 10 professors in the last 50 years. And they listed, in the top 10, there were 3 Indian names. That's very interesting. And one of them, actually, all of them were, let me try to name them. You would know one. One is Amar Gopal Bose. Bose speakers. You have heard of Bose speakers. The most
No, sir.
sophisticated.
Speakers. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bose speakers are the most sophisticated speakers you'll find in the
Yes.
topmost auditoriums in the world, in opera
Okay.
home.
Yes,
Bose
sir. Yes.
speakers. So Amar Gopal Bose. His name is Amar Gopal Bose.
All right.
Second was Sanjay Mitra. Sanjay Mitra. Is to call him Mitter, M-I-T-T-R, but it was Mitra from Calcutta. And there was third person, I've forgotten his name, a third Indian also. So, I started meeting with them. I met Amar Gopal Bose. The only way to meet him was to take his class. He used to teach acoustics. And he's just started his company called Bose Corporation, which is now the most prestigious company in the country. Yeah.
Wow.
So that helped me a lot to develop myself in MIT. When I went to Sloan School, I was also at Harvard Business School. I mean, I was in a joint program between Sloan and Harvard. And there also I came across Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen that time was, I think, visiting professor from Cambridge at the Sloan School, working with Paul Samuelson, who is the famous economist. And there was another one who later on became, there were a lot of people from Calcutta those days, by the way. Asim Dasgupta. He later on became the finance minister of West Bengal, a full-fledged communist, but he was highly regarded as a great economic thinker on development. So that kind of also gave me a little bit of a boost that if you perform, you could be respected anywhere in the world.
Correct.
Yes. Totally. Like with great colleges comes great atmosphere, and you get to meet and know about many people who are doing great in their lives and from the same background. So it's kind of really big motivation.
That's right.
Also, sir, a very small question here. Like, sir, was the competition as visible in MIT as it was in IIT? Because in IIT, the competition is quite visible. You can see that people are really, really competing. So the collaboration thing is kind of a little missing in IITs compared to foreign colleges. So could you highlight whether the competition was as, vibrant
No,
in MITs?
competition was not there at all because I didn't care. What I cared about is solve the problem. Now,
Got it.
how am I competing with someone who cares? You are playing golf. You manage your own handicap. You want to get to the next hole in the least number of strokes. Now, by watching you, if you are my competitor, how am I helping myself? I stay focused, what I want to do, and something I'll talk about when we come to discuss consulting. It is you want to enjoy your strokes. You want to enjoy your search for excellence. You want to enjoy solving the problem. And by the way, that was in IIT also, I felt the same way. My classmates were not competitive. They were not thinking of how to beat Partha. I was not thinking of how to beat. My biggest competitor was a guy from, his name was Anish Gupta. Anish was good, I was good. We all did our best. And so I felt today, unfortunately, see, that's why I'm a bit worried about India, which maybe we'll touch about later on. The way the Indian system is developing, I feel, is limiting one thing which you just touched on, ability to collaborate. They're thinking of maybe how to pull someone down so I can go up, as opposed to everyone rising up. Definitely in our time, there was more collaboration at IIT. We never thought that I have to beat someone else. We thought about how to score 100 out of 100. Now, that is purely up to me. By, Akshara, by bringing you down, I don't get anything.
Correct.
But by helping you, you will help me, and both of us will rise. That was the spirit.
Yes, sir.
And that is happening, I think, you know why? Because what we discussed earlier, when I first looked at your question, I was surprised actually. How is your JEE journey? My God, that's the journey. I thought, what are they talking about? Because that journey drives in you that competitive DNA. School should be a place when and JEE journey you're talking about from the age of 8 to age of 16, so you can take that exam. And at the cost of losing the experience of being in your class, being in your school, wherever you're from, maybe from a small village or from a big city, from a richer part of the city or versus poorer part of the city, it doesn't matter. You want to enjoy this experience. Now, if the parents are now picking you up and sending you to Kota, if you're rich, or sending you to some local tutorial, they're taking you out of a system which you will never be able to experience the rest of your life. So this is something I would like to have a special session with you guys, and you can broadcast it to the Prime Minister's office, because if India cannot fix this in name of IIT, which is supposed to be the most prestigious place to be, we are bringing in students highly compromised. At the age of 16, they're already gotten suffocated, tired, competitive DNA built into the system. And I think that's not good.
Makes sense.
I'm glad that I don't know whether other interviews have brought this part out. You may want to compare. I'm sure you have interviewed many other alumni.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
I
sir.
strongly feel about this point because I care about the country. I'm talking so much enjoying talking to you guys are the future leaders. And I would like to see Shivam or Aksharat, you take positions on such issues vocally.
Thank you so much,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank you so much.
We get your point. Yes, sir. So, like the IIT part that you talked about, that felt very relatable, and then MIT part that was very motivating for us, and we got to know about many new things which we were not aware of. So now let's move to the consulting part. So, since you were in McKinsey for 11 years, and as we have heard in our college, that many people often quit consulting or their company after 3 to 4 years of experience. So, how was the journey there, and how did you actually manage in that very hectic schedule of consulting for 11 years?
Interesting. Again, I hope my answer would not disappoint you. I enjoyed each and every moment. I never looked at it as a hectic schedule. I was in a problem solving mode. If it took me 8 days a week to solve the problem, or it took me 28 hours a day to solve the problem, I enjoyed it. Exactly what we were talking about, taking the joint entrance examination. So I never looked at my McKinsey life, or, after that, I started my own firm, which was to compete against McKinsey in so many ways. Partha S, Ghosh Associates, which was headquartered in Tokyo. I had offices in Singapore, Istanbul, London, India. So why did I go on? I stayed on this profession for 40 years. So it is not a matter of 10 years or 5 years, then I leave. I joined McKinsey because I wanted to be a good problem solver, take on any problem, learn about new industries, be it semiconductor, aerospace, automotive, appliances, pharmaceutical, biotech. I covered the whole range. But when I'm working for semiconductors, I pick up a book, the most advanced book on semiconductor, learn it in 2, 3 days' time. So when I'm talking to the top management of Intel or top management of Sony who make chips, I sound intelligent. I can ask the right question. I digest everything about the semiconductor industry. And within 3 months, I'm talking about how that company should change its semiconductor strategy. That process of moving from zero to hero in a short period of 3 to 6 months, I really enjoyed. It's really going through the S curve many times. You go up, you finish the work, again, you start somewhere else, you go to zero level. You have to establish your credibility, your knowledge base, your trust with the new client, and then again you rise. And that's what I enjoyed the most when I started my own firm, because McKinsey, as a senior partner, had a brand behind Partha Ghosh, senior partner of McKinsey and Company. Okay, McKinsey. Oh, but when I started my own firm, that was again going to zero level. But I realized also, once you start talking to me, you should get impressed. It doesn't matter whether I have a McKinsey or BCG or Partha S Ghosh Associates name behind me. Does Shivam make sense? The brand
Yes,
doesn't matter. And
correct.
I enjoyed that. Most of consulting that I learned was during my time when I was running my own firm, because I had to build a brand, but at the same time tell my younger people, don't rely on the brand, not because people love Partha Ghosh, that's why you're good. You're good because Akshara, on her own merit, when she talks, people listen. And I used to train my juniors with that spirit, which was hard. Sometimes people used to cry, Akshara, working with me, but they talk about it with tremendous pride. When I first met Partha, Partha was so demanding. I used to come back home and cry. Recently, I heard that when my son got married, I invited a friend of mine in Tokyo, they got married, who worked with me in Japan. And she talked about it, about me, but with a lot of affection. But she said how much Partha meant to me in that context. She talked. So I personally feel, people who say I work 4 or 5 years and I leave, I'll become a CEO of a company. That is again, people are compromising on their inner passion. If you're joining McKinsey just to get a stamp and then move on to do something else, then the question you should ask yourself, what is your life all about? Is it collecting stamps? Okay, I took the joint entrance exam, so I can get IIT Kharagpur stamp. Then I got the McKinsey stamp. But how many stamps do you need to get somewhere? As opposed to our biggest example in my home, right in front of me, I have a picture of Tagore. Behind me, there's a picture of Swami Vivekananda. I'm just picking up two names. They moved around the world with their own personality. They did not need any stamp. Now, with the Vivekananda stamp from Prime Minister Modi to Mukesh Ambani, in both of their office, they have Vivekananda's picture about
To join consult.
McKinsey experience. I think for me, it was never an experience of collecting a stamp. It was very difficult to get into McKinsey. Mind you, when I joined McKinsey, the world economy was going through a downward trend. There was a lot of inflation. The unemployment was high. Yeah, McKinsey was literally handpicking the best of the best. Fortunately, I got selected to join the New York office. But again, I came across McKinsey by accident also. Being a chemical engineer, when I was finishing my master's in chemical engineering at MIT and MBA with Harvard Business School and Sloan School, my goal was to join a company like Exxon, Chevron, be a true chemical engineer. And I had job offers, airport. But McKinsey name just came by accident. Someone said, Partha, McKinsey's coming. I said, who is McKinsey? Oh, it's a very difficult firm to get into. I said, well, what do they do? Management consulting. Now, when they say difficult firm to get into, that raised my curiosity. Oh my God, then I should check them out. What's so difficult about it? So I wrote down my name in the list of people that are visiting both Harvard and Sloan School. So I put up my name in both the schools. And fortunately, they would only interview the top 10% of the class. So fortunately, I was in the top 10% both at Harvard and Sloan. So I was chosen for interview in both the places. Then I was in a bit of a trouble. So I then checked where will the interview be first. I noticed they are coming to MIT first. So I knocked off my name from Harvard Business School because then it will look odd as if I'm trying to play two cards and taking away the opportunity for someone to be interviewed, right? They will interview maybe 15. Okay. And to be honest with you, I remember the interview, again, goes back to my joint entrance examination. I enjoyed the discussion. I was not trying to impress anyone. I already had about 10 job offers from chemical companies. So it was more to find out what is this, why it's so difficult. And I was very well prepared. I read some of the articles and I raised more questions than they raised to me. I said, I read that article, but I have a bit different point of view. There was an article on mergers and acquisition. And that led to a discussion. I still remember his name was Steve. Steve was interviewing me. He came from the McKinsey Cleveland office, a senior partner, and we got into a discussion. It was more a debate between the two of us, three of us. There were two of them and myself. And that led to the next interview. I went to New York to be interviewed, and then I enjoyed my discussion on my thesis. I had to do a thesis in MIT Sloan School on banking. And the guy who was interviewing me was the head of the banking practice in the New York office. I still remember those guys, and again, there was a debate around my thesis. And before I know, there was a beautiful letter that we are delighted to offer you at the New York office. Any help you want to make a decision to join McKinsey? I'm sure you got many other offers. So and so would be giving you the guidance. So, and in fact, I was not made up my mind. I was a bit shocked that this discussion has led to, because I never prepared anything. I just enjoyed the discussion. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you are natural, whether you're taking the entrance examination or joining a company for an interview, choose a path where you feel your mind is. And that's why the 40 years that I spent in the consulting profession, both as part of a well-established firm called McKinsey Company and established my own firm, that too in a most difficult country, Japan, and then creating the brand all over the world, is because I enjoyed the profession. It's not for money, not for fame, but I have to spread the fame because then only the clients come to you. Fame not because you want to enjoy the power. Fame because you have a point of view on a subject, new organization, leadership, strategy, where people say, oh, Partha has got something interesting to say. Let's also try Partha S. Ghosh Associates. We'll ask them to write a proposal. We'll ask McKinsey to write a proposal, BCG to write a proposal. And I enjoyed competing there. I enjoy the competition. But the competition is not to pull down McKinsey or BCG. I have to write a proposal. Suppose I'm writing it for you, Shivam. You find it so motivating that you choose my proposal. It doesn't matter that who has written the proposal, the quality and the content of the proposal. So that's what I have learned of my life. If you are focused on your own content, everything else becomes irrelevant and truly irrelevant.
Correct.
Yes.
That
So
was
like you
that was
mentioned,
yeah.
so like you mentioned in your interview, you were kind of cross questioning and there was debate kind of scenario. So I believe for this, apart from the immense knowledge that you had about the field, confidence is also a big measure. And in fact, in every stage or exam or interview, whatever you faced in your life, apart from the knowledge you had, all the way, the confidence that you have played a very major role in getting you success through all those obstacles.
Yeah, I think confidence. And if you think in terms of interviews, my only recommendation would be go well prepared more from the point of view of not thinking of what questions people will raise, but study the company that you're interviewing. You should know that company in and out so that you could raise interesting question about the company before people raise a question about you. So that gives you an extra power that, look, I read this article about this company in your company, and I was a bit fascinated to hear this 3 points. But at the same time, I must say, I have got two other points. Seems like your article missed. What do you think? That you are taking a point of view that there are two other points that article missed. That attracts people. So, in other words, try to be well prepared, knowing about the company, knowing about the industry. If it's an oil company, know about the energy industry. If it's a semiconductor company, know about the semiconductor. If it's a fashion industry, know about Giorgio Armani, how he used to think about design versus Ralph Lauren used to think about design. So I think that is the most important. That gives you the confidence that you're talking about. Just being confident without knowledge, you look arrogant. You have to be confident in your knowledge, humble in your appearance, humble in the sense when someone is talking about it, be an active listener. And to me, active listening means that you are listening between the words. You are studying the gesture, the body gesture, the physical gesture of the person, which is nonverbal, listening the nonverbal part of the communication. And that's what I think people appreciate when you're being interviewed. I always used to drop when someone used to walk into my office, I'm being interviewing, I will just drop a piece of paper. Sometimes it happened first time by accident. Someone walked in and somehow she did not notice it. But then I also didn't notice the paper. The second person who came in, she noticed the paper, put it up on my desk. I was very impressed. The alertness. Suppose I'm writing and somehow the pencil drops, you eagerly reach out and give the pencil back to me. That kind of alertness, curiosity, listening between the lines, this is what would help you to be impressive and be able to offer answers which the person would appreciate. Because mind you, no one is looking for a perfect answer. They're looking for the logic through which you develop an answer to a case study. Often people ask me, oh, Partha, there's a case study. I said, what is a case study? Case study is just a typical problem that you have to solve. Think of how you want to solve the problem. You cannot study 100 cases and feel that you have become a great problem solver. The more problem solving is about how to think logically in an imaginative way and having a little bit of a intuitive capacity, which we discussed earlier.
That was really informative, sir. And I suppose a lot of people watching this will like understand what exactly problem solving is, what confidence is, what knowledge is, and how all the three are correlated with each other, sir. Moving on to the next nice question, sir. As we all know, you supported IIT KGP to promote a leadership. We all know the Partha Gupta Academy of Leadership.
Partha
Sir,
Ghosh.
how did Partha Ghosh, sorry, I'm really sorry,
Yeah.
Partha Ghosh Academy of Leadership. Sir, like how did that happen? We are very curious to know about how like all of this came about. Also, sir, how is it going on right now?
Good question. If you ask me based on my global experience, I worked in about 36 countries. And if you ask me, Partha, what is the most concern you have out of the future of the world? And I would take perhaps 1 nanosecond to answer. It is a deficit of leadership. Deficit of leadership at all levels. Leaders doesn't mean it has to be on the prime minister level. From prime minister level to student level, even in the joint entrance examination, the problem that we were discussing earlier, there's a fundamental deficit of leadership. So that's point number one. So there is a need to launch a leadership movement for the world. And I obviously, out of my love for IIT Kharagpur, love for Hijli Jail, Midnapur particularly, Hijli Jail, where hundreds of people sacrificed their life for the independence of the nation, and the first IIT, I wondered, could IIT host a leadership movement for the world to cultivate higher quality problem solving, higher quality communication, higher quality leadership expression, compassionate leadership expression, which the world is lacking. If you look around the world, from North Korea, South Korea struggles to the South China Sea, to the Myanmar crisis, the struggles in India, the struggles between India and Pakistan, China and India, if you go on, Ukraine war, the struggle in Middle East, the challenge for democracy in the United States, I cannot claim by any stretch of imagination the world has been guided by quality leaders like what we talked about earlier, like Swami Vivekananda or Tagore, point number one. India, particularly with 1.5 billion people, with a lot of aspiring youngsters like you, is a fragmented country. You know, there are too many point of views. I think, and understandably, because there are many languages, from Manipur to Gujarat, from Kashmir to Kerala to Kanyakumari, you know, there are many languages, many cultures. They all have to be celebrated. If I'm a Punjabi, I cannot look down upon a Manipuri. If I'm a Manipuri, I cannot look down upon a Gujarati. We have to be proud as a Manipuri that I have got my Gujarati friends. A Gujarati should be proud that I have my Bengali friends. I don't see that. I see people are getting, even in IIT Kharagpur, I'm noticing the small clusters of people who are moving from the people of their region. That was not the case when I was at IIT. And my closest friend was this guy called Sabarwal, who came from Delhi. Another friend was Krishna Ramaswamy, who was actually from Calcutta, but from originally from South India. They were my closest friends that we used to move around every day together, walking down after dinner towards the entrance gate and come back to RP Hall. Now, so India, the world needs a leadership movement. So that's why I created the academy. And the third reason I created the academy so happened because of my consulting work. I've been working on the subject of leadership from 1985, 1986. Literally, after 7, 8 years, I started my life in McKinsey when Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mahathir, asked McKinsey. I was part of the team that could we develop a leadership program for the CEOs of all the public sector companies. They used to call in Malaysia SCEs, State Economic Enterprises, like Malaysian Airways, Petroton Saga, Malaysian Telecom. There were 200 companies like that, big and small. And I prepared the leadership program for 5 days. And I was in charge, but there were other members of McKinsey who were giving the lectures, running the workshops. So since then, I've been on the subject of leadership. Now, 1985, 86. So you can imagine it's almost 40 years. Now it's 2024, 38 years. And in the process, I developed my interest in what is leadership, how to cultivate leadership in people at the C level, at the C-1 level, to emerging leaders, to student level. I did a lot of leadership programs at MIT, and I developed a new model called the 3PI model. If you go to the Leadership Academy, you can study about it. And so I want now IIT Kharagpur to become the owner of this movement and project this movement for the world, and in the process make IIT Kharagpur one of the premier institutes in the world. So IIT Kharagpur is a tremendous opportunity. Now that leads to your second part of the question, how well it is doing. I am not at all comfortable. It's moved very slowly. I think you guys have to get involved. You have to work with the director because this is the way you could put IIT Kharagpur on the global stage. It's not how many departments we have. We all the time talk about we have got the largest number of departments, beautiful campus, large campus. It is not the size. It is one or two things we have to do right. So the world takes a notice of it. And leadership academic gives us that opportunity. That there is the Academy of Leadership, another department, let's say computer science or artificial intelligence, two or three pegs. That doesn't mean others are not playing any role, but you need two or three initiatives which draws the attention of the world, and then only you can improve the ranking. So I think, on the second part, I think we can do better, but we are making progress. I do not know what is holding them back, because I've given not only the funds, which is a humble amount, but what is more important, I've given them a model which is appreciated all over the world. I've done that in Japan, in China, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, in Hungary, in Germany, in the United States, of course, in the United Kingdom. So it has been accepted globally. So we have a model. Please study the model and we'll see how we can take it forward. That's one homework I'm giving you guys in view of the interview, because Akshara and Shivam, please note, your life becomes meaningful only when you take on one or two challenges and make it happen.
Correct.
Do not just touch few points here and there, and all of a sudden you will see you have become 50, then you have become 70, then you become 90, and you will ask, what did I do? And time passes very rapidly, by the way. So do not, this is the time, the people that we celebrate, Vivekananda. Vivekananda gave his speech at the age of 29 in Chicago. He was not invited. And he put India on the global stage. One speech, 2 minutes, 58 seconds. The brothers and sisters of America. I don't know whether you guys know about the speech. I can recite the entire speech. So, we need that kind of, and that's part of the leadership academy, to create people like Swami Vivekananda.
So totally agree with it. So, sir, you are like one of the most influential persons like I've ever met, and we both are very astonished by your strikes of achievements. So, you must have also met many influential people in your life, and someone could be there that that particular person transformed your life or gave some different trajectory to your life. So, who would that be?
My God, there's so many of them, including you, including you.
That's
And I
amazing.
really mean it. I really mean it. Let me put you, and this could be a separate session. And if you guys want to organize a separate session, maybe this is a session you can organize like this, but in Netaji Auditorium. This is a very, very good question. And I want to give you a brief answer right now, a 30-minute answer in the Netaji Auditorium, if you guys can organize it. And I really
Surely.
mean it. I will do that. I think I did come across a lot of very, very touching individual. The first person that comes to my mind is when I was in Calcutta. Being in Calcutta in the 1960s was an absolute privilege because there were so many stars from Satyan Bose, who was known for boson, the God particle.
Yes.
I met him in my school. He was visiting. I met Hemant Kumar Mukherjee, who is known for his both Hindi and Bengali songs. I met Chuni Goswami, who was the captain of the Indian soccer team, which won the Asian gold medal first time. And he was only 22 years old, but was captain of the team in 1962. So, growing up in Calcutta, coming across these people in my school, then coming to IIT Kharagpur, meeting people like I mentioned earlier, M.N. Rao, Professor Faruqi, maybe these names you would not know, but they were tremendous personalities. And then moving on in my profession, naturally, I dealt with a lot of C level people. But just because they're C-level, that doesn't mean that they have impressed me, but there are many of them who have impressed me. The first person outside of the India realm that impressed me the most was, I must say, a person by the name of Marvin Bauer. Marvin Bauer singularly built up McKinsey Company. And this is where I will explain the importance of passion. Marvin graduated from Harvard Business School and Law School to become a lawyer in the most prestigious firm that time in the 1920s, late 20s, early 30s, to join a law firm in Cleveland. And these law firms' clients were people like Rockefellers. But on his way on the train from Boston to Cleveland, the train was going from Boston to Chicago, stop in Cleveland. Next to him was a young man, older than Marvin. His name was James O. McKinsey. James O. McKinsey was a professor at University of Chicago Business School, and he just started his own company called James O. McKinsey and Company. And both of them have a very interesting chat where he was talking exactly what we were discussing right now, that America needs a new movement on strategic management in the corporate world. And that's why he's starting this consulting firm. He just wants to introduce budgeting, how to budget for a year, because he felt companies are running like, like what is it called? Like mom and pop shop. You just do the planning for the day, then the next day, as opposed to having a plan for the year. And that's what he wanted to introduce in American corporate life. And both of them had such a good discussion. Marvin Bauer pretty much decided that instead of joining this prestigious law firm, highly prestigious, he would join this unknown man called James O. McKinsey, an unknown profession called McKinsey and Company. Today we talk about McKinsey. That time it was totally unknown. No one knew James O. McKinsey. No one knew what is management consulting. But he joined. And the reason I'm telling you, he told me these stories himself, Marvin Bauer. Then, so luck would happen within 3-4 years, James M. McKinsey passes away because of hard work, and he had a bronchitis, and he passed away, pneumonia, and he passed away. But James M. McKinsey was so impressed, though he was young, there were no clients. He kept on working, borrowing the jewelry of his wife Helen to put it on the pawn shop so that he can pay for the electricity bill and some of the people that were working in the company. And this is how he built up McKinsey and Company. So he told me when I was joined McKinsey, he took me out for lunch in a Harvard Club right in the center of Manhattan. And he told me this story, and I was so touched. Because that's one person who touches me all the time, that if you are sincere, if you're honest about your passion, and if you stay the course with full integrity and grit, you can make it. So he was definitely stands out, apart from Swami Vivekananda and Tagore and Boson. They were also equally good. Then the other persons that stand out, many of my clients, I will just quickly name them. This is a very good question. I like to have a separate session on that because I want to celebrate their lives. Is a guy by the name of Azuma Tatesh. I met him when he was 80 years old, chairman of a company which he started as a client of McKinsey and Company. That time I was an engagement manager. I met him for the first time in Kyoto, and I got to know him. And again, in short, I'll tell you, he started the company at the age of 50 after going bankrupt 3-4 times in 1950 when he was 50 years old. And the year he started the company, his wife passes away, leaving behind 5 kids. He told me, Partha, that's the time I learned that 24 hours could be so beautifully used. I was a mother and a father and a businessman, and that to a technologist. And he told me how he used every hour of his life when he was a mother, when he was a father, when he was a businessman. And he built up the company from nothing because he went bankrupt 4 times, so banks would not give him money. But when I met him as our client, McKinsey's client, he was one of the most prestigious client for us. He was spending $1 million on us every 2 months for 3 years. And he was running a company $10 billion in size, but living in the same home where he started his career. Touches me. And I can go on and on. I met Akio Morita, founder of Sony. I met Soichiro Honda, founder of Honda. And I met Malaysia's Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad. I met Turkey's President, Suleiman Demirel. Each one of them had tremendous influence, tremendous influence. In India, I was also touched by my discussion with Mukesh's father, Dhirubhai Ambani, who introduced me to Mukesh and Anil. Some comments he made about capacity, which again is a big discussion, that he knew how to think big, and asked me whether I agree with him. And fortunately, he said, "You're one of the few person agrees with me and given me the logic." I gave him the logic why he should think big. So, each person played a role. And similarly, my class, I teach classes at MIT and Tufts. I met you, Akshara and Shivam, the way you're asking the question. I'm learning from you. And I hope the discussions which we are having is not just an interview. I want to see this as a beginning of a movement that you guys could take forward with full passion, courage, confidence, and integrity. That we have to do it because India needs, in a new sense, sensitivity, because I feel India has become a bit numb. Though there's a feeling we are doing very well, but actually we are not, which we can discuss separately. We are falling behind. And we can discuss that either in a separate discussion or maybe the questions that are coming. But perhaps I could address that briefly.
Thank you so much, sir. That was indeed really motivating, sir. And I wouldn't have to there were questions that I didn't ask that you already answered, sir. There were longing questions in my mind about leadership and about how one can manage things well. Like the two humbling stories we heard from you about two great gentlemen. That's something that will take, like, as you said, it's the start of a movement, at least for me and Akshara from today, that we can think from that perspective. Sir,
Sure.
moving on. So you've worked with a lot of sectors of businesses, right? And so what do you think about India in the domain of entrepreneurship for 20 years from now? Because as you can see, India has been emerging in entrepreneurship. The number of companies, the startups have been growing rapidly day by day. So what's your perspective to the scenario of entrepreneurship in India, sir?
That's a very good question. I'll give you a philosophical answer and a practical answer. India has always been entrepreneurial. Why? Because you cannot neglect the person who is selling the tea at Chedi. Chedi is still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, when I was there in 1966 to 71, Chedi was a small little hut. People used to come after it. So he's an entrepreneur. Would you agree? Then at the
Yes.
corner of the RP Hall door where you go in and the main road, there used to be a young woman who used to sell fruits. She's an entrepreneur. So we should be very careful in saying that entrepreneurship is as if it's growing right now. When in a poor country people do not have enough jobs, by default, people become entrepreneurs. They will sell something on the road, they're selling something on the shop, they're selling something somewhere. Some of them become big, some of them just keep on struggling, but they're all entrepreneurs. They do not have jobs. Now, many of them perhaps wouldn't have been entrepreneurs if they had jobs. They would have joined companies. So that said, I would like to first honor all these entrepreneurs across the villages and small towns. I'm not thinking of Bombay and Calcutta or Delhi or Madras. These days we talk Bangalore and Hyderabad. Our time is to talk about four cities, literally in one breath. This is how Delhi, Calcutta, Bombay, Madras. That's how people used to say. But anyway, now, many villages, many towns have got entrepreneurs. They're doing something. Now, the kind of entrepreneurship that you are talking about, companies like Infosys, which was once small, has become big. Now, there I feel we have to be very careful. What does entrepreneurship mean? One is entrepreneurship where you are solving a social problem, something which the society needs at the base of the pyramid, not at the top of the pyramid. Our Indian entrepreneurs have served the top of the pyramid. They could bring up an idea. There's Uber in America. Let's do a similar thing in India. There's Amazon in America. Let's do a similar thing. That is, to me, not entrepreneurship. That is just copymanship. And someone who's got some money, you can do it. He copies it. Indian government perhaps sometimes gives protection, so Amazon cannot come in. But that's not entrepreneurship to me. But the entrepreneurship, when I take a problem and I solve the problem for the first time in the world, and it becomes a super success story. And fortunately, in India, we have so many problems. India is full of problems. And if you can take one of the problems and solve the problem, it can become a super success story. I can give you an example. I don't know how many of you know, India's biggest problem in the next 20 years will be water. 70%, 80% of India would be starving of water. Fortunately, where you are right now will not starve of water. East, from little bit of east of Bihar all the way to Assam, that Gangetic plain would be okay. But west of Kharagpur or west of Bihar, all the way to Gujarat or Maharashtra, down from almost south of Kashmir to Karnataka, there'll be water shortage. We are not talking about it. Now, could not some entrepreneur find a way to really recycle water? So the water that we have available in the system could be recycled. And the surface water that we receive in form of rains, particularly the parts of India where rains are high, like in India, in Bengal, how that water could be siphoned to various parts at a price. So the Bengal also benefits. Bengal should not feel, okay, we are giving away one day what happens when we dry, because I also do not like what is happening in India, the India interstate rivalry. India has gotten fragmented. When I was growing up, India used to have 18 states. I still remember 18 states, which I learned in school. Today, I think there are 29 or 30 states. That means India is fragmenting. So developing solutions with the society, water as an opportunity, bring the reverse osmosis technology. Energy is a problem. Could India, students develop new way of cooking? Because Indian cooking habit is unlike Japan, where they don't cook much. They take fresh fish, which becomes sushi, cut fresh vegetable. So they do not fry, they're not just cut, but they grow everything fresh. So when cut and eaten, it's very healthy. Obviously, they are very healthy. Japanese are very strong personalities. So that's the second area. Third area I feel could be on the healthcare area. Health of India is generally not as good as it should be. Let me put it that way. Nutrition level is low. I don't know whether you know, 9 out of 100 kids get the right level of nutrition, 81 don't in India when they're born in the first 24 months. Could an entrepreneur develop products which is highly nutrient, cheap? A mother in a village in Bihar or village in UP or village in Madhya Pradesh or Manipur or Bengal or wherever could afford. So that is the first kind of entrepreneurship I call solving social problems. Second kind of entrepreneurship is technology-driven entrepreneurship. That I know this technology in and out. How could I apply to create something for the world? Transformational. People like Zuckerberg has done it. People like Bill Gates have done it. They're all dropouts. They spend 1 year in university, but they bring something new to the world. How come India is not being able to bring? There are 1.4 billion people. Even if you take only 20% of the people get education, that's 300 million people. That's the population of America. But where is the entrepreneurship? So that is missing. Solving literally problems which are not solved. And there are so many problems in the world, and many of them are in India. But there you are coming from the technology angle to bring something which the world would appreciate. That's the second kind. The third kind is what I call, and that's why India is a tremendous possibility, where you connect many dots together. You're concerned about healthcare, but in healthcare, you want to bring chemical engineering knowledge, artificial intelligence knowledge, digital cloud computing knowledge to see how you could literally track each and every individual's health around the country. So, so these are the kind of entrepreneurship which I do not see in India. So do I feel positive about the trend in India? Well, I think there's effort made, but India has to make a step jump in terms of coming up with transformational problems and that to transformational solutions for problems, which is at the base of the pyramid. Doing a Uber and a Flipkart for the top 20%, who are we serving? What are we doing for the villager? Think of the woman who has got 5 kids. She has to work in the farm to help her husband and then come home and cook for the 5 kids. And that too, the way she cooks, the whole home becomes full of carbon dioxide. Could you create some cooking methods where that woman who works from 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the night, continuously working? I cry for them. Akshar, I mean, you have to be sensitive to those women. What are we doing? I mean, she deserves this world, she deserves this country as much as Akshara, you and I, or Shivam deserves. And we are not thinking in those terms as yet. So I personally feel what has happened in terms of entrepreneurship. Yes, a lot of companies are going IPO, going public. Few people are becoming super rich. They go public, all of a sudden they become billionaires. There are more billionaires in India. But forget that billionaire class and the base of the pyramid class, the gap has only increased. And the gap increases means what? Either the base of the pyramid becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, so much so the pyramid collapses. That's one. Or if the pyramid once wake up, there could be a Bolshevik revolution, a French revolution, Mao Zedong revolution. The India has to make a choice. That could we create a managed revolution of the mind so that the real kind of entrepreneurship could solve the problems of the country. And again, this is a subject I can go on and on. It's very
Definitely.
close to my heart. It's a very good question. And I've spoken to her about this with Manmohan Singh once when he was the finance minister. And he appreciated the answer. But then I said, let's organize a conference. But it became a conference organized by CII. Only few top people come. They applaud. It's over. We go back to the life as usual. But this time, it's my hope you guys can begin the change.
So sure, we'll try our best to. And so, like you mentioned about various ideas regarding the different fields which really need change, which really need entrepreneurship to be put into. So, there's one more thing that, as we know, AI is emerging and it is at its peak. Like every technology got its era. So now it's the era of AI. So, what do you believe would be the impact of AI on entrepreneurship, on the businesses and jobs?
Yeah. Now, AI is here to stay, and AI is just at the beginning, early stages of development. Last night over dinner, I had a very good chat with a couple and their parents from Venezuela who live now in Florida. And we were talking about the challenges of developing countries and AI. So happened that was a discussion, and they very much appreciated the point I made. I said that look, artificial intelligence is a new force, very similar to what the steam engine did to the world, which created the industrial revolution, and then came the electricity, which changed the second industrial revolution. Then came the computer that came the automation and information processing. But the AI is talking about intelligence. And intelligence processing, the real challenge would be how AI and NI, the natural intelligence, the human intelligence, they could be interacting with each other. That's at the philosophical level we have to keep in mind that how are we designing this interface between AI and AI, NI and AI, natural intelligence and artificial intelligence, to create what I call awakened intelligence. Mark the word awakened intelligence, which is AI 2, awakened intelligence, AI 2.0. Okay. Now, in a country like India, the top 5%, the next 5%, next 5%, all the way to the base of the pyramid, AI has a role. But obviously, the people who have gone to schools, gone to colleges, have got a lot of money, the way AI plays the role versus someone who is poor plays the role very different. So India has to launch a special program for AI-driven solutions, first for the people at the base of the pyramid. How do I use AI so that the farmer in Punjab can talk to a Punjab farmer in Bihar? One is speaking in Bihari, the other one is speaking in Punjabi, to exchange best practice ideas. AI cloud, where the translation takes happens. So I speak in Punjabi, but Akshara, you in Bihar hear in your language, Bhojpuri, say, and you speak to me in Bhojpuri, and I hear it in Punjabi. That's where I think the focus has to be, that how do we connect India in their mother tongue? Because I do not want everyone to know Hindi. Why should a Tamilian? In fact, Tamil Nadu, there is a movement going on. And I fully appreciate Tamil is a very old language, as is Bengali, as is Gujarati. So we do not have to impose Hindi across the country. Now, if people want to learn Hindi, that's fine. So Hindi is the language of UP, maybe Madhya Pradesh, maybe Himachal Pradesh, but definitely not Gujarat. Maybe there's some similarity. Maharashtrian, definitely some similarity. Bengal is very different, but yet some similarities. The roots are Sanskrit. So that's one thing AI gives us the opportunity. It really gives us the opportunity to solve some fundamental socio-economic issues of our country. Second, AI as an efficiency booster. If you look at the wastages that take place in the world, and then I'll come to India, in terms of food, if I was told if we produce 100 kilos of food, ultimately 35 kilos are used properly. Another 65 kilos, I do not know the numbers exactly, I hear different numbers, but let's say even 50. Now, the country, when the world is starving, there's a huge population out there which is starving. Why could we manage our resources, water we talked about earlier, land, grains, sunshine, all the nature-given assets, the nature-driven resources much more efficiently? AI can come to and help. That's the second part. AI for education. Now, a small kid growing up in outskirt of Patna and a small kid growing up in outskirt of Bombay, they're different. The Bombay outskirt kid is looking at high skyscrapers. The way his dream is developing versus the dream of the person outside of Patna is developing are different. Now, but AI should be able to equalize this dream, so it can motivate everyone equally by giving him the possibilities of the future. Could we craft dreams for the young people in India, the playbook, the comic book that they could create for the future. And we have to again focus on the base of the pyramid. India's problem is that we are not touching the base. We are all the time, now we are talking about big airports. But how many top 20% can afford the big airports? I'd rather like to see the cycle paths, the roads in the villages, the schools in the villages, the sanitation, the water system in the villages, because that's 70% of India. We are typically from 1950 onwards, we have talked about Garibi Hatao, we have talked about employment in the rural sector. But when we have made investments, we have typically made investments for the top 10% of the country. So the capitalism has become self-consuming and is serving the capital. And that's the nature of capitalism. It always serves the capital because the capital is the power. So we have to design using AI, what I call capitalism 2.0. Now, as you could see on this is another subject I can give you, I have a separate session. And I have a presentation on AI and AI's role in nation building. And the last point I will make about AI as a transformer of society, that we have to create a new vision of AI powered. If AI is the intelligence, which is basically helping the left brain, then I think we have to develop an education system, which again goes back to Academy of Leadership, which can excite our right brain. Right brain is about imagination, about creativity. Left brain is about logic, as you know. Now, education system is so designed, it is to help you to become logical engineers, which is good, but AI will do much of the work. The logic, anything which is logical, data-driven will be done by AI. So only way we could leverage the AI if we can keep our right brain, which is creative, imaginative, significantly more developed, so which can interface with the AI in a more creative fashion. So as you could see, there's a lot of things I could talk about, but it is a very good question. And that's another role I want Academy of Leadership to play, to give birth to new form of education, keeping in mind the development of the right brain. As a result, inner conscious will be very, very important. And what are we doing about it? And I'm afraid we would be left behind because the way India is talking about AI in a very top-down fashion, in a very artificial fashion. And again, we would be left behind, and then we'll wake up after 30 years. We wake up typically after 30, 40 years. And then it's too late. The train has left the station.
Right. That was quite informative about like the entire AI ecosystem, sir. I think a McKinsey consultant can best speak about AI right now. I mean, the kind of emerging field it has been. And sir, a similar field that is about to see some growth in India is the semiconductor industry, sir. There's a lot of talk around it, whether because I've just heard, like I'm from the electronics department, sir, and some of my professors have been, ringing me about this, that this is in another 4 to 5 years, India was going to see a semiconductor boom. Sir, any comments about this from your perspective, sir?
That's again, I will disappoint you perhaps. I have grown up in the semiconductor industry because my clients, many times I worked on the semiconductor industry. It is again about discipline, clean behavior, the behavior, how to design circuits. And first question we will ask ourselves, why are we waking up now when the semiconductor industry is about 50 years old? Point number one. And if we wake up now, just by inviting NVIDIA or by inviting AMD or Intel, will it change the equation? The answer is no. Okay, there will be some people who will get jobs in the NVIDIA factory if NVIDIA sets up a factory. But I tell you, semiconductor industry needs a very different kind of infrastructure, a very different kind of behavior, if you will, in the clean room. Wearing the white gowns rightly, the behavior, the etiquettes, the discipline. And that's why you would see the semiconductor industry is highly dominated by leaders who are typically from Taiwan or Japan. And
Correct.
you have to ask why. You know, if you look at the head of NVIDIA, he grew up in Taiwan. The chairwoman of AMD from Taiwan, SMCI, which is a super microcomputer from Taiwan. And then there are several Koreans and Japanese. You have to ask why. So unless we analyze that, is there a culture of, which I call the chopstick culture, the fine touch culture, the culture of dealing with the micro level issues in a very dedicated fashion? Unless that develops, it would be very difficult to develop the semiconductor industry. To say it would be booming after 4 or 5 years, I think again we are making a dramatic statement which we have repeatedly failed to deliver. We have talked about, when I was in the 60s, I've heard people saying India is at the crossroads. India is the next superpower. I heard it in 60s. I heard it in 70s. India would come up with a new energy system because there was an energy crisis. Nothing happened. Then Abdul Kalam wrote a book with the governor of Reserve Bank of India in 1996, where he writes, I'm extremely confident by year 2020 India will become the most advanced nation in the world. And then he writes in comma, if not earlier. And 2020 has passed. Now, I think this is another favorite subject of ours. You know, if it is semiconductor, if it is automotive, whichever industry we pick, we have to understand the cultural aspect of that industry. There's a culture of the reason that America lost out in semiconductor to Taiwan, they have to ask, why did America lose out?
Mm.
That's the first question to ask.
Yes, sir.
What did America miss? America did not develop the discipline that is required in managing the fabs, the managing the fine machines that you have to deal with, the maintenance of the machines, the discipline. And if you ask me what is the biggest factor which is holding back India, is the lack of discipline. That's like all across. So I'm afraid, I mean, I will obviously, as the Indian who loves the country, as you could say, I'm talking purely out of love of the country. I think we have to face the real issues, whichever sector we want to. In fact, my advice would be India should not waste money on the semiconductors. That is, source semiconductor. Buy something which will use semiconductor to sell the products to the world. India made the same mistake when they talk about steel. We invest a lot of money in steel industry in 1960s, but we never managed to export steel. We still import, and China exports. So we have to focus on those niches where India, given its culture, given its unique capabilities, could really shine. The semiconductor would be a me too. Everyone is talking semiconductor, everyone is talking NVIDIA, so we can create an NVIDIA. But it's just NVIDIA was created by an individual in Silicon Valley. Where are those individuals in India who can create that, not because the government is supporting, and happens naturally? So we have to see the natural evolution of our inner passion, and that's what we have to serve.
Yes, so totally get it. So since we are talking about semiconductor industry and entrepreneurship, so just like NVIDIA when it started its chips, so at that time Intel was at its peak. So no one could have thought that NVIDIA would surpass Intel in coming years by such a huge difference. So here comes the role of NVIDIA, where it was very futuristic about its chips. Like its chips were something that supported when this AI, machine learning, deep learning came. So it couldn't be handled by Intel and NVIDIA. That was the moment when NVIDIA started rising. and now we don't see Intel anywhere close to it. So I believe whenever we talk of a startup, so it is the mixing the technology with the problems that you see will come up in futures. Like according to my perspective, in future maybe green energy plus some combination of AI, how we are putting technology into it. So that would be some sector in which we can see many industries. So what are your views on this?
Absolutely, that's a very good point. See, you have really touched on a very good point. That how come Intel could not think what Mr. Huang or could think in NVIDIA? And I think there are two issues to take from this lesson. It's a very good question, which is repeatedly would see major innovation has come from outsiders. You can ask the same question if you go back 30 years. Why couldn't IBM, which was the darling of information technology, could not create what Microsoft did or what Apple did? 20 years later, why couldn't Microsoft create what Google created? Then you can say 20 years later, why couldn't Facebook create what Google could not create? So always the breakthroughs have come from outsiders in an environment where if you bring a new value, people are willing to accept it, however unknown that company may be. That is the greatness of America. If you today start a company in Patna, not in Bombay, not in Delhi, however smart you are, people would have a tendency to look down upon you. That is the sad part of India. America, most of the companies, many of them come from very, very small towns, like 3M came from Minnesota, but people look up when you have a value add. That's one thing to keep in mind. The second point is absolutely right, that in Indian entrepreneur who really understands semiconductor has to really come up with a new logic, maybe around quantum computing, maybe around four-dimensional computing, not three-dimensional, four-dimensional, which can take advantage of a science which at a very early stage of development to solve a major problem. And when it is in the prototype stage, that time, if Indian government could understand it, they should invest. Most probably they will not, because they say, well, it's not proven, we rather invest in Intel. That would be the thinking. Intel is coming, we will give them tax incentives, we'll give them free land. That's what India has done. But that way, Intel's one part is in India, but there are many other parts, and they soon see that China is much more efficient, so they rather invest in China as opposed to India. And that's what has happened over the last 30 years. If you look at the relative investments of these foreign companies, Google, Intel, vis-a-vis the investments in China. Now, Google is not allowed to compete in China. That's another thing about Chinese. The Chinese are very clear in these areas we will become strong. And look at what China has created, TikTok, ByteDance. Oh, we have not created a single company like that. They're absorbed the whole world. Now, so we have to choose a niche. And we have to choose a niche where we could find 5 or 10 entrepreneurs who are totally dedicated to it. It cannot be the Tata Group investing with Intel in a fab. It will not, it will go somewhere, but it will not nothing become unique. It will make some chips. Okay, it will go on like that. So I think that is the spirit that we have to bring to if we really want to play a major role in the semiconductor industry. Now, if you want to provide a platform for foreign companies to come and invest, I think they will look at, to be honest with you, if I look from American eyes, they will look at Vietnam, they will look at China, they will look at Japan, they will look at Korea, and they will say, well, the Japanese are much more efficient. The Chinese infrastructure is significantly more developed. Why not China? It's very simple. Now, India has something which I'm surprised very few people do not know about, and they're not leveraging. India gave birth to one of the most it is the most fundamental particle of the world, which I mentioned a bit earlier, the God particle, which is called boson.
Boson.
Boson. Satyendranath Bose, so much so that even Albert Einstein changed his equations to call it Bose-Einstein equation, Bose-Einstein statistics, Bose-Einstein condensate. We could say, okay, how to use that boson as the fundamental particle, its power to create new kind of computing algorithm. That's the kind of fundamental level thinking I'm talking about. Then we can say Indians people are smart. They know how to leverage fundamental forces of nature to create new technologies. Ultimately, what is a new technology? You use a force of nature at the finest level and convert that into a problem-solving process which creates solution. Now, that's another role I want the academy to play, to help students understand what is problem solving. That's why I enjoyed consulting. They never looked at consulting as a advising profession. I looked at it as a problem solving profession, where I get the opportunity to think in new terms, to break the old rules, to create the new rules, to look at the future with more confidence and creating a logic so that people would understand why I have that confidence when others don't. What is the logic behind that confidence? That's what I've enjoyed as a consultant. And if we can bring that culture into the engineering and technical schools of India, we'll create the new India.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I hope I did not disappoint you guys.
No, sir,
Uh,
not at all.
Sir,
I
that
can go to
was
the
very
last question about job seekers. You
Yes,
had a
sir.
question about job seeking and interviews.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the last question. Yes, that's right. So,
So,
sir,
yeah.
yeah, sir. So basically, I mean, before this interview was conducted, a lot of our friends had like a set of questions. So we just took the union of the intersection of all and like have just 3 or 4 questions. A brief answer from you would be appreciated, sir. Sir, so basically, some students, not many, as you know, like not many students are research inclined these days. So some students have, their dream of studying at MIT, and they are very willing to know about the kind of roadmap required to land up at MIT. Sir, can you please highlight the role of CGPAs or research papers or anything alike that plays a vital role in a person getting admitted at MIT, given he is an IITian?
Yeah. Now, fortunately, IIT, particular IIT Kharagpur, thanks to the alumni of the school, enjoys significantly more prestige than it enjoyed when I was graduating from IIT. So you guys have an advantage. And you have to thank all the alumni
Yes,
for creating that goodwill. So you guys have advantage that you are writing, particularly IIT Kharagpur has a tremendous advantage. Okay, point one. Now, whenever you try to go to any place, whether it's IIT, or say MIT or Caltech, Princeton, Carnegie Mellon, these are the top universities, Johns Hopkins, these are Berkeley, or you want to go into consulting. The first thing to keep in mind, which I touched on earlier, that whatever you write, whatever paper you're going to submit, the essay that you have to write, a lot of things happen before you're interviewed. It has to be genuine. It has to be from the bottom of the heart. There has to be something new, which is transformational in nature, but yet practical. Something which will wake up the people who are writing. Oh my God, what a great thinker she is or he is. I remember for a while I was helping MIT to review the applications which is to come, undergraduate applications to MIT. I was surprised by the quality of writing of some of the applicants, particularly from this country. They're high schools who are writing. They're so touching, it's very difficult to even reject. You feel like reading more. Someone would say, I had abusive parents. My father was half of the time drug. Mother was running around with other men. I grew up in a broken family. The way she writes the whole story and how she has dealt with adversity. In the process, she developed a curiosity to learn more about life. And then as a result, she used to stay away from the family. She used to stay more time in the school, even after the school is over, hang around in the way she wrote that paper. I said, how could we reject? And then when I look at her GMAT, right? No, not GMAT, LSAT, SAT score, which is for
Yes.
undergraduate. I get again impressed, 800. So mind you, so keep in mind that whenever you're applying to these top institutions or organizations like McKinsey, BCG, Goldman Sachs, that today I would say the word millions of people are interested because these names have become household names. In our time, for example, McKinsey was a very exclusive name. It was known to the top, but it was not a household name. My uncle knew about it, but my mother did not know when I joined. My uncle knew because he was a senior executive in Shell oil company. And he said, oh, Partha, they are the best. They reorganized our company. Okay. But today you could talk to any middle class family, say, oh, my son is in McKinsey. Oh, McKinsey. So everyone knows McKinsey. Now, the positive thing is they have earned that reputation. For an applicant, you have to keep in mind there are thousands of competitors and very good competitors from all over the world. China, McKinsey is very popular. Chinese education system is extremely good. Keep that in mind, by the way. I've met students there. When I go to Tsinghua University, Peking University, if I compare the energy level of the students there versus IIT without any, though I feel painful in making the statement, the energy level is about 3 to 4 times higher. Energy level, you can feel it. I remember I gave a speech at Tsinghua University at 9 o'clock in the evening because I was very busy the whole day. So I thought there will be a few students who will show up. Now, when my car brought me in, first I was amazed. The whole university, the playing fields are full of people, the floodlights, they're jogging, they're playing, young men, women. Then I thought, well, maybe no one would be in the auditorium. They chose the biggest auditorium for me. When I went to the auditorium, it was house full. And you can see the buzz, the energy. As soon as I came in, it became totally silent. Oh my God, what an experience. And when I finished, the questions that were being raised, one after another, I was amazed. So mind you, your competition is severe. That's another point going back to the semiconductor world that we're discussing. We often do not understand. It's nice to announce we'll be the biggest part in semiconductor, but everyone is working on it with significantly more higher level of competitiveness. So first advice would be to anything that you write, please think of how you're differentiating yourself. Differentiating yourself, not only saying all the goodies, I came first in the class, I did this, that is standard. You have to bring out some negative points and how you converted the negative to the positive. The example I talked about, this girl who talked about broken family and drunk mother or drunk father and mother moving around with men at random. And then she talks about, uses that and how that has shaped her thinking and why she should be admitted to MIT. So that's point one. Point two, I think, keep also in mind that when you are writing an application or a letter, there is clarity. I often find when I receive notes from India, there's too much of overlap in how we talk. Making a distinct that there are 3 points today I want to discuss with you. Point number one, which is distinctly different from point number two. And point number 2 is distinctly different from point number 3. And then you summarize, as a result, I believe if given the opportunity at Berkeley, I would be able to bring this value in the classroom by being able to discuss about the challenges of poverty in Indian villages and how that could be resolved by applying artificial intelligence, for example. Then people would say that, look, this person is a thinker. She's not thinking about herself, she's thinking about the problems of society. And the third point is, that's another point to keep in mind. These days, I notice, though your note was very well written, it's right in front of me, that I find typically notes coming from India, maybe because of this social media craze, little bit informal, bit too informal. If you're writing you spell it out Youare as opposed to you and then an R. But that mistake, even in your email, that has to be kept in mind. So that's the first point of entry. Then in the interview, as we discussed earlier, making sure that you are being honest, you are an active listener, and when you're answering, do not be in a rush to answer, but give a thoughtful person answer so that the individual interviewing you really feels you're a thoughtful person, as opposed to in a rush to impress. You should not never give anyone a feeling you're in a rush to impress. You are enjoying the discussion, you're thoughtful, and you're honest about the discussion that you're having. That's what people care about at the end of the day. But that's another subject I would like to have a separate session. This is something you could ask the Academy of Leadership, because one of the reasons I started the Academy of Leadership is to help the communication capacity of personalities, because you're living in a world where everyone is becoming very short-term oriented. They're continuously looking at their iPhone, right? When you're talking, they're doing this. And they cannot, without checking, the last 2 hours we are talking, I've not even think about the phone because I'm totally dedicated to the discussion we are having. This is a very important discussion because it's not about me, not about you, but about the future of the country. Doing it with that kind of spirit. And I think you should be able to demonstrate that during the interviews, that you are totally focused and totally honest. And, your answers may not be perfect, but let the interviewer appreciate the logic of your answer, the clarity of your answer. That's what I think people expect.
Okay, so that was quite detailed and you covered various dimensions about like how we can apply and how we should make our proposal and essays. So that was very informative. And with this, we want to move forward to another topic where a few of our friends wanted to know about like consulting, like how we can get into consulting. So it would be great if you can shed some light on it.
Consulting, as perhaps you already got a feeling from the nature of the discussion we have had, I would say to keep 5 points in mind, 5 key points in mind. First, do not look at the consulting as a profession where I want to work hard or I'll be dealing with people at the C-level. Of course, these are natural. You have to look at consulting as a profession where you get a chance to serve society and serve people. It is a service of the highest, which requires highest level of integrity and intelligence, highest level of dedication to solve difficult problems. That's point number 1. That dedication to problem solving. And as you know, I don't know whether you've read Rig Veda. Rig Veda's first chapter, the title is "In the Beginning is Desire." So basically the Vedas talk about that before the universe was created, there must have been some force which had the desire to create the universe. So in the beginning is desire. Keep that in mind. So your desire to be a good problem solver should become evident while you're interviewing, while you're writing a note, that you are getting into problem solving. It is not about high salaries or high brand. If I get into McKinsey, I'll be able to find a great partner, or I'll be able to find a great job after 4 years. That's a very shallow way of looking at consulting. Consulting is a very, I often say, missionary profession. It's a mission. That's how I looked at it. Now, even if you leave after 5 years, but during this 5 year, you should be totally dedicated to that missionary zeal, if I may use the term, missionary zeal to serve, be it the chairman of Tata Sons or be it a startup. You want them to succeed, and you have to always put clients' interest ahead of your firm's interest, ahead of your own interest. That's point one. Point two, problem solving has an artistic side and a scientific side. Art is the right brain, which is being able to imagine, able to intuitive. So when you are serving as a semiconductor company like Intel, you should have a natural imagination. If I was the CEO of Intel, what is the kind of company I want to create after 10 years? That desire should be natural, and you as a young person can imagine. Imagination doesn't have any limits, it's limitless. Yesterday, the discussion last night was artificial intelligence and society. And someone would say, the young person who is the husband of my student was telling me, and he's in artificial intelligence, by the way, that AI would guide human behavior. I say, I don't agree with that because AI would do the logical part of the human behavior very well, faster, better, precise, more accurate. But there's the imaginative side, which comes from your inner conscience and right brain, which would become increasingly important so that your imaginative capacity would drive AI as opposed to AI limiting your imaginative capacity. Keep that in mind. Now, again, I'll go back to Tagore. Right in front of me, I see his oil painting. Tagore wrote in one, I'll say in Bengali first. Any of you know Bengali a little bit?
A little bit,
No?
yes, sir.
No, not as yet. Okay. I'll first say it in Bengali, then I'll translate it in English.
Yes.
In one place, he wrote, Shimar mache oshim tumi. Shima means limit, oshim means unlimited. In other words, he said, within the limits of my perspective, you remain unlimited. Now, I see that possibility in AI also. AI would work within the limits of our logic, but the right brain would always remain unlimited, imaginative. So that is the second part you want to display in your during the interview, that you can imagine. Now, do not go wild, that then people would say that this person is too wild, too crazy for us to hire him or her. But being able to demonstrate that you have the imaginative capacity. Consulting would need that. I also give advice to consulting firms these days, how they can become relevant in the future. Because the way I grew up in as a consultant in the last 30 years, and the next 30 years of consulting will be very different. Most of the reasons people hired us as McKinsey because we used to do great analysis. Well, that analysis would be done by artificial intelligence. So what is the role of the consultant then? It moves more towards the right brain. But our mind, your education that you're receiving at IIT, education that they will give you at Harvard Business School would be focused on left brain. So there's an opportunity of the Academy of Leadership, which you can talk to the director, that to develop the right brain education, how to be more intuitive, more imaginative, more creative, so that you could stand out in society. So that's the second point. Is I'm giving a long answer. This is a separate session we should have. The third and the fourth is, as I mentioned here, Whatever you say, there has to be honesty in your interface. Consulting is all about honesty. There's no room for any kind of shortcuts. You cannot just be a fluff. You have to be substantive. You have to be real at the cost of perhaps upsetting someone. For example, I may have upset you guys many times today, but that was my objective was not to please you. My objective was to get to the heart of the issues. And you should be able to demonstrate that. You have the desire to get to the heart of the issues. Then the third. Fourth would be a very good listener, because sometimes embedded in the questions there are answers. And you should be able to uncover that answer that the person is looking for. And that is often between the words. Between the words. And keep in mind, sometimes silence is eloquent. Do not be in a rush to respond. Sometimes being silent itself is very expressive, and then respond with a lot of depth, a lot of thoughtfulness, a lot of empathy towards the question that person has raised, however stupid that question may be. Sometimes I used to raise stupid questions while I was interviewing to see how the other person would react. A matured person would take the question, reposition the question, and answer it beautifully. Other person would get upset, then obviously a person who gets upset scores low in that interview process. And the final point is display your humility. Sometimes I feel I've seen that people feel the desire to look too confident. Too confident looks arrogant. I think humility with, would call inner integrity. Humility with inner integrity is a beautiful balance which people appreciate. I think that is an art which has to be managed. And that's again another aspect which I want Academy of Leadership to build a course, a microcredit course.
Thank you so much, sir. These were like some of, I suppose these 5 points can summarize getting into consulting like much better. I mean, there are so many resources floating nowadays in the market about consulting that, I mean, I myself being a consulting aspirant, I find it so confusing to like fall, like, I don't understand what really is the resource that I should follow to, break into consulting with ease. But now with these 5 points in my mind, I suppose it'll be a little bit easier for me to keep myself focused on what's important. So
I'm
we
sure,
already
Shivam,
had.
you will
Yes,
do
yes,
very well. You keep that 5 points